So kind of go to Hilltop Youth are there, let them go. And I try to give them a different kind of presentation with a lot of videos. Watch the Rav here, watch the Rav there. Now, the amazing thing was,
was it this?
yeah, I'll show you which one to show.
All right.
The amazing thing was, like after it was over, like I showed like the Rav in all kinds of situations, mostly in English. I showed him shiurim, but there's not that much footage in Hebrew, unfortunately. He was banned in the media here. And of course the shiurim in the yeshiva were not that much. In the 80s they didn't film that much. But the stuff I had was in English, most of it, because that stuff, you know, the Rav was speaking, it was filmed. And like even students, I'm talking Bichel Ben Ari, you know, people who know the Rav, I mean, they never saw that side. The Rav that debates, you know, the Rav that debate Dershowitz, Rabbi Kahane who could answer the questions, they never saw that side, because in Israeli, what did he see? He saw either as a Rosh Yeshiva, if he was lucky, that's the beautiful side to see. But how many saw that side? Or in the streets. That's all it was. So even Meir Ettinger, who loves Rabbi Kahane, he's this grandson of Rabbi Kahane, he just heard Rabbi Kahane himself. He said, you know, Ein Duki Yomitam. You know, that's what he hears. He hears the rallies. That's all he knows. All of a sudden, and then I worked really hard on a good translation. Like we worked on really hard. I sat with Avram Shaiman, like, you know, a grind, and we put it a really good translation. And the Israelis saw, wow, that's the best side of that side of the rabbi. How he answers questions and always says it right every single time. Wow. Anyway, I just want to show one. I showed it last year, but this got 20,000 hits. Like, you know what I'm saying? I have no Facebook friends at that. I have like 50 Facebook friends. I put this on, and I chose a segment, and the key is choosing a segment. I mean, Michael Miller did the work. He put everything up there.
Michael Miller.
He put it up there. But nobody's going to watch hours and hours. You know, you want to watch Ben Shapiro. You're not going to take 40 minutes. You're going to look at Ben Shapiro 3 minutes, 4 minutes, right? You're going to, you know, so even unless you're a chassid, like, so I have to pick a couple of minutes to show different sides. I put this out there, and like, I got my pocket was exploding. Like, what's up, you know? Since then, I made more friends because I realized I want to publicize things. I'm not just going to have Facebook. So you know, now I have a lot because of this video. It exploded in my phone. Just and my daughter told me, because this is not confrontational. I love the stuff in 60 Minutes, the confrontational stuff, which I'll show you something new I did. Confrontational, that stuff, the way he answers them. But this is Kiruv. And the Rav is great in Kiruv. Before we show it, you have to understand the Rav is great in Kiruv. First of all that stuff in the JDL, that was great for Kiruv, because he was taking the kids of the 60s, you know, who were marching for Vietnam, and there was activism on campus, that was the atmosphere, and he was giving them a Jewish cause to fight for. That's Kiruv. You're identifying with your nation. That's the greatest Kiruv there is. And eventually they say, well, I'm helping the Jewish people. I feel I'm proud to be a Jew. What does Judaism mean? What is it, Judaism? So eventually learn Torah. That's a type of Kiruv. Now, I have the clip I put up was something in the 80s. It was the kind of speech I saw. By the way, I do want to one funny. The first time I ever saw Rabbi Kahane, I was at Miami University, right? It's not like I fell in love with him. Because I went to Albany. It was cold. So I drove to Miami to my friend. He was going to law school there with a couple of friends. We were going to do, you know, it's gambling. There's high-lie and horses and dogs. You know, that's what we went for. But right before Gulfstream opened, you know, it was the flats. The Rabbi Kahane was speaking on campus. So we had to check him out. So he comes in like with these bodyguards next to him. These bodyguards. He sits there, and the Hillel rabbi there, who didn't want him there. He was sponsored by somebody else. That's how it always happens, right? And the Hillel rabbi is saying, Rabbi Kahane, I'm not comfortable to see you with, you know, these big gorillas next to you. I'm not comfortable. This is a college campus, and this is, you know, it's a peaceful. I'm not comfortable. So Rabbi Kahane says, well, first of all, there's threats on my life, so I'm comfortable. To me, it was funny. You know, I heard that. I go, I got to hear this. You know, this rabbi. Okay. I mean, he cracked this up, and you know, that's Kiruv. An Orthodox rabbi is funny. He knows how to answer. That breaks a lot of stereotypes for secular Jews who never had contact with Orthodox Jews. And I see this rabbi. So anyway, this is that type of speech he gave on campus in the 80s. Now the 80s, let's go to Penn University. No.
This one?
Yeah, Kiruv Penn. This one.
Ah, that one.
Now, what's the 80s? It's not like the 60s. The 60s is activism. The campuses are places of activism, whether Nicaragua, Vietnam, but it's so the rabbis come and talk. We're talking about people like when I went to school. It's the yuppies, you know. You're going to school just to make money. You're going there not for activism on campus. You know, right to the money. You're learning. You know, you're getting your MBA. That's the attitude in the 80s. Anyway, so how are you going to take these kids and make them feel Jewish? So this is what he tells them.
Ready?
Yeah.
And so the first thing that you have to do is find a rabbi, a real rabbi, and study Torah, and find out what the Baptists already know. We wrote this and they study it. Put it into the study. Pick up a real Jewish book. This summer, take off for a summer and go to Israel. Not to a kibbutz. Go to a yeshiva. For beginners. Try it. You may like it. You may not like it. You don't leave, but try it. You may love it. And see what your sages and puppies once knew and why we are special. And are we special? You think that people wandered the earth for 2,000 years? We wandered from country to country and we survived. You think that that's anyone better than that? Crusades and Inquisition and pogroms and Auschwitz, and we survived. That just happens. And we returned to our country from 100 different lands exactly as the Bible says. You think that's coincidence? And we win wars in six days. 6 days. Who wins wars in 6 days? It takes God 6 days to make the land. The servants will go next. You think that we're an ordinary people? Let me tell you something. We are great people, and we don't know who we are and what we are. So pick up a Jewish book, go to a yeshiva for a summer, learn it, enjoy it, drink from it. And when the summer's over, write to your parents and say, I'm starting to stay for a year. They may not be happy. No, you usually don't do so many things to make them happy. This time it'll be for your sake and for their sake and for all of our sakes. Go home. Get married there. Have many, many babies. Every Jewish baby is a diamond, a jewel, a gem, a chain, a link in the future. You don't have to be doctors. A Jew does not have to be an attorney. A Jew doesn't have to be a singer or a married. You can be a carpenter, and you can be a plumber, you can be a Jewish farmer, and you can plant a Jewish tree. And you can go and join a new settlement where nothing grew and begin to make it grow. And someday, when you're grandparents and you sit with your supper grandchildren and you tell them, I remember there was nothing here. And the grandchildren will look at you and say, Jesus, son, what a grandfather. That's nothing. That's joy. That's what life is all about. Life is a challenge. Life is greatness. And to be Jewish is greatness. One final point, don't be afraid. What the nations say, what the Reagans say, the Jewish people didn't survive for 4,000 years. They go under because of Ronald Reagan. There is a God, and believe in Him. We see is the beginning of the redemption of the Jewish people. There's a guarantee in the Talmud that in the land of Israel there will never be a third exile. There's no guarantee of a Holocaust in the exile. There is a guarantee. Having come home for the third time, you will never lose it again. Don't be afraid of Russians. Don't be afraid of Reagan. Don't be afraid of Arabs. You're special. Make greatness. Study Jewishness. Practice Jewishness. And bring them aside.
Oh, that was a powerful kiruv he did on campus. You see how it could affect the Jew. You walk out of that room a different person many times. So we have a lot of films here, but they kind of changed, the campuses changed in the 80s, you know, like in the 90s. You know, like today, a lot of Arabs on campus, a lot of indoctrination, a lot of hostility. I mean, I showed that last time. I don't know how many we had last time. Listen, this is a new one. Let's shut the lights for this. So it's really hard. Crossfire. Let me tell you about this crossfire. Now, this is confrontationalism. This is advanced Kahanism, okay? This is not 101 Kahana. This is like a very confrontational video. Wait, before you show it.
Yeah.
He was on Crossfire after the underground was caught. The Jewish Shamanim underground, a couple of months before this. And he was like defending them. And it's not easy to defend that. You know, like a guy like Ben, you like Ben Shapiro on campus, and it's fun to watch these guys, but they're defending like transgenderism and abortion. You know, those are easy positions to defend. morally, even though it's not easy, because the students then are crazy, and you have to convince them. But the rabbis is defending positions that are really tough to defend. Expelling the goyim for Israel. I mean, this is not an easy position to defend. Now, he's on this show. It's a very kind of like pro politica. It's for America. It's kind of a little. Let's say it's not that polite. You have it's called Crossfire. On one side, you have Tom Brady. You see a real anti-Semite. On the right, that's on the left. On the right is Pat Buchanan, and he's like the right winger. And in the Crossfire, they always have a new guest.
He's not a very good friend of the Jews.
He's not. Yeah. So anyway, when Rabbi Kahane was on previously on Crossfire, he was defending the Jewish underground with these great answers. Like they said to him, Pat Buchanan asked him, "You're a rabbi. How can you defend putting bombs on buses?" So he goes, when one comes to slay, you slay him first. Now that's not good Gandhiism, and that's not. I don't have a loincloth, but that's Judaism. Anyway, he had these answers, and he told them that he's going to be the Chaver Knesset. Next time if you'll have me, I'm going to be a member of Knesset. So they put him on the show here, and now Buchanan doesn't show up. They have another guy named Richie Allen. Okay, he's another right wing guy. Not right wing. He's considered the right wing. It doesn't matter because they're all against the rabbi here. But you're going to notice the calmness. You got a lot of hostility in them, and he's calmly waving them off. And he gave some I think, unbelievable answers here. I narrowed it down to like 7 minutes because it's too long for people to watch the whole thing. Again, notice I put Hebrew subtitles because we're opening up a whole new seaboard to watch the Rav. Again, the Israelis are dumbfounded. And how many, the Israelis, I'm talking about Talmidei, people who love Rabbi Kahane, never saw that side. And it's a fascinating side. So this is like the first time we're showing this. This is a Crossfire.
From Washington, Crossfire. The host for Crossfire, on the left, Tom Brady. On the right, sitting in for Pat Buchanan, Richard Allen. In the Crossfire, Rabbi Meir Kahane, founder of the Jewish Defense League.
Good evening, and welcome to Crossfire. Let me introduce you tonight to an American who is also one of the new members of the Israeli Knesset, or Parliament. Israel's Interior Minister, Joseph Berg, has called our guest a lunatic. Mayor Koch of New York has called him the Jewish Farrakhan. Israeli President Herzog has called him a racist, but Rabbi Kahane continues his campaign to expel all Arabs from Israel. Last month, he took that campaign to the nation's largest Arab village, where both Jews and Arabs threw stones at him in an effort to keep him out. Welcome, Rabbi Kahane, to the peace and quiet of Crossfire.
Thank you.
And may I say this to you, the last time we talked, you promised that you would return to Crossfire as a member of the Knesset. So I am forced to congratulate you, while at the same time I ask you now that you are a responsible member of government. Why do you continue to behave in a fashion in which in this country we would associate not with responsibility in government, but with, say, the Ku Klux Klan?
First of all, let me just state that your, the introduction was typical. I think it was really, really fair.
Or not those...
I haven't finished yet. While Mayor Koch, who of course is one of the great Jews of Israel, said what he said, and Herzog said what he said, 26,907 Jews voted for me, and I can assure you that in the next election, a large number of Jews, a lot of them, will give me many, many more seats.
Well, 26,000, Mayor Kahane, we have almost that many in the Ku Klux Klan in this country.
Well, if you want to say that those people who voted for me are KKK types, that's a typical liberal kind of thinking. Liberals have a tremendous problem. Everyone who differs with them is either a racist, a fascist, and so on. Well, that's not true. It's not true. And you people have very, very deep problems. You can't debate with me issues, so therefore you defame me. And name-calling is the last refuge of non-name.
I asked you, what's the difference between your policy and that of Stalin or even Hitler?
Hitler did to people who didn't threaten him. The Arabs make no bones about the fact that they believe that the Jews are thieves, and I understand them. I understand the Arabs.
You mean you mean the Arabs who are citizens of Israel,
that's right,
who are represented in Israel's great democracy and
right,
the Knesset? You mean you would take them and get out?
You have to have real contempt for the Arabs
I have
to
no
believe.
contempt.
Oh yes. Oh, do you have contempt for the Arabs?
You know who I have
If you
contempt
believe-
for? I have
I-
contempt for people like you.
Mr. Braden, if you ask me questions, you'll get answers. If you don't want answers, don't answer questions. Okay?
I ask you first.
Then let me answer you. You have contempt for the Arab if you believe that the Arab, in a state which is defined legally as the Jewish state, which has a law of return that applies to Jews only, if you think that he can empathize with that state, then you have contempt for him.
Let me tell you, Mr. Kahane,
Rabbi Kahane.
I know some
Rabbi
Arab
Kahane.
parliamentarians. I wouldn't grace you with a religious word.
In
If
that
you
case,
insist
stop
upon it,
asking
I'll
me
call you
questions.
by your title, Rabbi.
Good.
I know many Arabs who are in the Knesset, and I think they have great respect for the state of Israel.
Then you really are a liberal who thinks that you can buy people. You can't buy a person's national pride. The Arabs of Israel cannot possibly rise to sing their national anthem, which has in it the words, "The soul of a Jew yearning." If you were an Arab,
They're citizens of Israel.
my dear, because they have no choice. They have no choice. They hope through babies to create a different kind of a situation with the majority of Arabs. And they're doing it. And they're getting there. Now, you certainly, as a Democrat, would answer that, assuming, hypothetical case, assuming that the Arabs would be a majority, then of course they would have a right to send 61 members to the Knesset, a majority, and vote to change Israel to Palestine.
Well, supposing, Rabbi, that I thought, supposing this preposterous thought, that I thought that the Jewish people in the United States were soon going to outnumber all other religions, would you then, what would you think if I then said, well, we've got to get every Jew in the United States out. Tell them to either immigrate or we'll drive them out.
Mr. Braden, my greatest dream would be to see the Jews of this country go to Israel.
There may be new election. Would you really win again in a new election? Could you hold your one seat? Your party represents one seat.
I would hope that there would be an election next week. Not only will I hold a seat, but I'll gain several other seats. The people who voted for me were basically the Sephardic Jews, the young Jews, soldiers, people from the development towns. And these are people who make up many hundreds.
How many people voted in
thousands.
Israel in the last election?
How many people
Yes.
voted?
How
Well,
many votes were there overall?
about a little over 2 million people
2
voted.
million. And you then had 26,000
Right.
plus votes.
It was 1.2%.
How do you account for this? You're a well-known figure in the United States. You're a well-known figure in Israel since you emigrated to Israel in 1971. How do you account for this? Aren't you really the representative of a really extremist fringe in Israel?
Hardly, and why should I argue and say it's this, and then you say no, and so on? People tend to underestimate the masses. I think that we sometimes start to believe what we see on TV, or what writers write, and so on. The fact is that you meet a certain kind of an Israeli who is not going to represent the masses within a decade. The Sephardic Jews who always voted for Begin, and Begin was a myth for them. It was a father.
Yeah, but Rabbi Kahane, look, you've got to admit, relevant to Dick Allen's question, that universally you are disapproved of. Mr. Begin disapproves of you. The Labour Party disapproves of you. I don't know whether Shamir approves of you, but I doubt it.
He
The
does.
President of Israel has spoken out against you. How can you possibly succeed in transporting 1,600,000 Arabs across the sea when everybody detests you?
First of all, Mr. Braden, I think that if someone were to come from Mars and were to pick up the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the LA Times and listen to all this nonsense on TV, he would assume everyone hates Reagan. And yet somehow he's the president. We'll see in the next election.
I interviewed two of those West Bank mayors that were badly mutilated in a bombing a couple of years ago. Did you have anything to do with that?
You know that I wouldn't say that even if I did. But I want to tell
Well,
you.
will you deny it?
But I want to tell you that a greater group of PLO Nazi types you have yet to meet.
And you've also said that you would obey the laws of the Knesset as a member of the Knesset, as a member of the elected parliament of Israel, only if the laws of the Knesset do not conflict with some higher law. Who interprets that higher law? You?
Mr. Allen, is there a human being who would not make that same statement? If someone in Germany in 1934 would have gotten up and said, I will obey the laws
Use
of the
the example of the
Reichstag.
United States. It's a much better one.
Okay, fine.
Are there laws,
Okay,
for example, for a legislator of the United States which appear to go against a higher law?
I would venture to say that when Dr. Martin Luther King broke the laws of Alabama, that he was obeying a higher law. And he was right. And he was right, yes.
You said that Jesse Jackson was a Jew hater. You're an Arab hater.
All right. Of course not. That isn't true.
You're not an Arab hater?
Of course not. No, I don't hate Arabs. I love Jews. I love Jews.
Are Jews better than Arab?
I'm an Orthodox Jew, a religious Jew. The Jews are the chosen people.
I don't get the difference between your accusation against Jackson.
Yes, I don't.
What should be your self-accusation.
Because Jesse Jackson wants to do away with the state of Israel.
When did he say that? When did he say that?
When Jesse Jackson supports the PLO, and he's a clever guy, and he's by far the cleverest of all the Democrats.
Rabbi, you made a statement some years ago.
Mr. Braden, I can't answer Mr. Allen, and you both.
This is pertinent.
Well, then his wasn't pertinent.
Did you make a public statement that you would like to murder Arafat outside the UN building?
Of course not. No, of course not. One of our people said that. However, I would like to murder him at any point.
Listen. By the way, I don't know, you didn't catch that, but they're interrupting him. But this is pertinent, so his wasn't pertinent. That was very quick, but that was very quick. You kind of made a joke out of the entire show there. So I just want to go back to Menachem. I think Menachem was a Tamim. He's a Tamim, Tzadi Tamim. And he thinks Rabbi Kahane is always going to say, the emet in every situation. Like when he says, I don't want to hate Arab, I love Jews. This is, I'm chiming in on Menachem's question.
Please.
I think that sometimes the rabbi, and I told this on the phone, I'm not, it could be that Menachem's right, that he found out later, but I still say the Rabbi Kahane was a little diplomatic, and he's not going to go to Tom Braden, I hate Arabs. I don't know if he does. I don't know, it sounds great. You're on that show. Rabbi Kahane is on the head of the spear here. It's hard for him to say exactly everything the truth at every time. We're sitting around in the Beit Midrash, learning, on computers, this is the halacha. When you're out there, you got to package it just a little bit. So I think so when the rabbi went out and he said, and I heard him give shirim in Torah, and he didn't give what he says in Or Rayon. He says the Get Toshav Sheva Mitzvot Enoch Misim Vavdut. He brought the Rambam, and but in Or Rayon he says that there's 7 nations, which is a different chime to it. That the Arabs are the 7 nations because they have the same characteristic of a nation that thinks you're a thief because you took it from them, and will never really shayach to offer them this offer because they think it's theirs. It's the first Rashi. You got him in. They think you're thieves. You can offer a Gershaf to a Chinaman or a Swedish guy. He doesn't believe it's his country. The minute you have people that you came onto them, they'll never accept it. So the Rabbi kind of says the Arabs have that characteristic of the 7 nations who claim ownership of Israel. Now, he's not going to say that when I saw him speak in Yeshiva or Kidumim. He's going to, because he can argue. But what you can't argue with, as if you're debating, there's no way anybody could negate that. The most they could be is get to Shav Shem Mitzvah Enoch Mishum Vavdut. You know what I'm saying? So I think some of the rabbi didn't always say exactly what the halach is, depending on the situation. When we spoke to us on campus. He didn't even quote Torah, obviously, because we don't know Torah. He spoke from logic. So let's see more. Maybe let's look at this one for a second. This is a quickie. Evans and Novak. Actually, one of them is a Jew. Actually, not a good Jew. Very
he
liberal.
converted.
He converted to Christianity. He's a Mamir, right? Oh, I knew something bad. So wait, before you show it, I got a little introduction.
I've also met him. He's also a snob.
Oh, really? He acts like one here. But actually, the rabbi's going to be one of the best. It's very quick. It's not like the last one. It's quick. They're liberals. They have their column in the New York Times editorial section. They're going against Rabbi Kahane, so they're careful. They don't want to get, he's a lion. So they ask him a question, also trying to marginalize him. Just like, they try to marginalize him. Yeah, have 26,000 votes. They're also going to try to marginalize him. He's going to give you this powerful answer that I want to analyze later. Okay, go ahead.
Some survey material or some analysis I have seen indicates that your supporters are the lowest economic economically situated people in Israel, the most poorly educated, the bottom of society. Doesn't that give you some pause as to just who is following your teachings in Israel?
There's probably no one more arrogant than the liberal, the one who speaks of the people but despises them. The same liberals who would be delighted to get black votes and would never say the lowest and least educated. Let me tell you something. Those Sephardic Jews who vote for me are streets-wise people, and they're infinitely clever about life than the professors at Hebrew University, and there are also a lot more of them. So the Sephardic Jew, the Jew from Arab countries who votes for me, didn't learn about Arabs at a seminar at George Washington. He learned about Arabs by living with them.
Notice in that answer, a couple of things that, because Evans and Novak, they're not hostile like Braden. So he keeps that, he says the worst thing about the liberal. He doesn't say you. But I think what's important in that answer is what he said parenthetically, and there's a lot more of them. He's not going at, and that, you have to say Rabbi Kahane Shita, he was going after Amcha. He wants to be prime minister. He's not like today, oh, we'll go after the orange camp. What is it, 5 votes? Rabbi Kahane's going for Vamcha. He's going for Begin and retired. He wasn't running. He's going for Begin people. He's going for Sephardi Jews. That's how you become prime minister. There's a lot more of it. So to the intellectuals, and I remember being around in Gush, the Gush Shamonim people when I made Aliyah. They're the intellectuals, and they didn't like Rabbi Kahane because they didn't hear the Torah aspects. He didn't spend time with them. They're not worth it. He's got to go, kind of be prime minister. He's going to the grassroots, making rallies.
Oh, he tried with them, and they didn't want him.
That's right, because he wasn't from them. He tried to right 3 times he ran, lost the kind because he's a natural for the Mafdal. Right? The religious, he's Zionist. But, I think the real problem, Binyamin once said like this, Lot samach b'dina shelhem. So it's like, I saw that with my relatives. He didn't come from them. He's a Brooklyn outsider to them, to the Israelis, in a lot of ways. And, like, they have their guy already, they're not going to be convinced of Rabbi Kahane. So I saw they didn't have anything to say, because I would go there, I was, I made Aliyah, and my relatives were from Kidumim, and Israelis, and Gush Shamonim types, and intellectuals, and I'm all Rabbi Kahane, and they don't like him there. He even came in for shiur, and he was amazing, and it's not a matter of the tochen, of the content. It wasn't the content. It was more like things like, look at the people around him, who's going to be in the Knesset, look at those crazy people with him. That was the criticism. So I was thinking to myself, so why don't you join him if that's the problem? Then I'll have normal people with him. I didn't understand. And then I saw Rabbi Kahane's Perush and Perusha Maccabee and David HaMelech with his crazy people. It says he also had 400 crazies with him. David and Yiftach had Anashim Rekim, empty people. So Rav Kahane, I think he had a tremendous insight into the phenomenon of an anti-establishment group that even Rashi and Rambam and the Radak, when they give their Perush and David HaMelech, so you see, only Rav Kahane has a special perspective because he lived that situation. And he says that anytime you have an anti-establishment group, like David now is, David HaMelech became anti-establishment. Shaul has painted him as a Mored Babalchut. So who comes to him? It says, Kol Ish Mitzukah, Marei Nefesh, bitter people. Because that's natural, because the good kid, the yeshiva students and the physics major, and the people established, they're not going to come out to King David in the midbar. He's not King David yet. Who needs to go into the desert of Judea and run away? Who's going to come? The crazies.
Hilltop youth.
The hilltop. So, and that's a natural thing. But with the Zek verses, Vayi Aleim Sar. Vayi Aleim Sar, the verses. But he was leader over them. And he says, these people are damaging. They're anti in their nature. They're anti-parents, anti-establishment, and they're anti in their very nature. But you can use them. You can use them because, they can fight too, right? And he says, but at the end, they're going to create damage. The rabbi writes this. I won't get the whole thing, but it says the end. And great is the sin of the good people who don't go out and do what's got to do, and they leave the battle in the hands of the crazies. Yeah. So that's what I like that, because it was like, hey, that's what I was saying to the people. Why don't you join them? Right? What are you blaming the people around? Really, it wasn't everybody's crazy, but it was like, look, he was attracting 80% secular Jews to his party. Except for the Jerusalem branch, most of the heads of our branches were secular Jews. Amnon and remember those guys? They were secular, and he has a religious party with a religious platform, and he's drawing in his constituents as secular Jews. So that was an amazing phenomenon in its own right. And we're going for the masses. In the end, the downside of it all was that when the rabbi was gone, it was a lot of everything fell apart because there was no depth. When you're going grassroots like that, you don't have much time to get deep into it. So, Arabs out, there are Arabs and taking on girls and they blah, blah, blah. But, so those people yell at Kahane, they'll vote for you. But they don't have, they'll yell at Bibi the next day too. Because he didn't go deep. Because if you want to go deep, then that's when you go deep. You get into the, And the Arab issue, again, is much deeper than even halacha. I mean, first of all, it's logical. It's halacha, ger toshav. But for the rabbi, it was even deeper than that. If you look at the book, Ala Muna Ala Gula, that if you want to bring redemption, there's certain mitzvahs that bring redemption more than others. And even if the Jews tomorrow don't observe Shabbat tomorrow, there's certain mitzvahs that will machish gula, at least, swift in the redemption. And one of those is the Arab issue. Why? Because everybody knows that's what you got to do. And why don't you do it? Because what do the goyim say? What do the goyim say? What about God? So you don't really believe in God. So it's a measuring stick. The Arab issue is a measuring stick if you believe or not. If you, when you sing in your tefillah, Eila b'rechev, Eila b'susim, Anachnu B'Shem Elokeinu Naski, we say it on davening. And then after the davening, well, listen, they got a lot of horses and chariots. So the Arab issue is one of those things that measure it's a yardstick for your emunah. So therefore the Arab issue is a lot greater than politics, but it's a halachic issue like everything else. And the rabbi was taking the Torah and it entered all areas of life. I mean, you had Shas and the Gouda and all that stuff, but they're not entering in the national sphere. So the rabbi's taking the Torah, and it goes into all aspects. Maybe we'll look at this. I don't know, 60 minutes, people might know. I think that was just good. Yeah. Like I said, questions and answers, so you can,
do you
please.
have the Minnesota tape?
You want to see that one?
I think it shows a different side of the rabbi.
Oh, I don't know which side, I don't know.
Minnesota, where they confront him on the stage.
Right, I don't have that. Well, that's like a 2-hour tape. I put in like a couple of minutes. Because remember, I'm showing this in person. Like, Bezrat Hashem, I'm speaking to an Ulpana in Malay Lavona, like an all-girls Ulpana. And, I used to speak once in a while, but I said, the best thing, I said, show the Rav. Now, there I show Shiurim more. I try to be, and there's not that much, but there's a couple of good Shiurim, and I try to give them Torah. Because it's an Ulpana. They don't want to hear, like, they don't understand a lot of this stuff. But you show them stuff they can understand. We have the subtitles, and you show them the Torah Shiurim, which I'm not going to do here, because it's in Hebrew anyway, and, I got better stuff in English anyway. So,
the 60 minutes piece?
Oh, yeah, 60 Minutes is classic. Now, this is Mike Wallace. He just got to the Knesset, and the rabbi said, before it was aired, it's going to be a hatchet job. But who cares? Because people know something's happening in Israel. He had just got his Knesset seat, and the media was after. It was a controversial guy like that gets in the Knesset. The media was hot on it, the American media. So it's Mike Wallace, 60 Minutes. He's the guru of the documentaries, real self-hating Jew. He tries to corner the rabbi a lot on this, and I think this one is better one. Also, good quality. This one. So this is like we didn't take the whole thing because it's about 25 minutes. We put in I think it's about 6 minutes. This is really good.
Back in the 60s, this 53-year-old rabbi founded the JDL in the United States, a group that used tactics of violence and confrontation in defense of Jews. 13 years ago, he moved to Israel, where he now crusades to throw all Arabs out of that country. That stand propelled him into the Knesset, where his party currently holds 1 seat. But if an election were held today, some polls show, his party could win enough seats to make them a decisive force in the next Israeli government. His message is loud and clear.
The Arab is a cancer in our midst. And you don't coexist with a cancer. A cancer you either cut out and throw out, or you die. It's better to have a Jewish state that is hated by the whole world than an Auschwitz that's loved by it.
When he first entered politics in Israel, most people wrote him off as a kook, an obscene embarrassment. His violent tactics got him arrested more than 20 times. Now all that has changed. He has arrived. Kahane is especially strong among the Israeli young. Some 40% of high school students in a recent poll there said they supported his ideas. 11% said they would vote for him. And he has a great following among Jews like these in a Tel Aviv market.
These are Sephardic Jews. They come from all countries, and they know what Arabs are. And they never did want to live under Arabs. And that's why they're my people. Because I say what they think in their heart.
If one Arab tell you, I like Jew, this is not true. And I tell you why. They go up, and what they think, to kill Jew, to put a grenade, to shoot with RPG. Well, what they study, this is from Lebanon.
They always want to kill us.
If someone wants to kill you, kill him before he kill you.
They want the Arabs out of here. And until someone says it, they won't back it. I come and I say, Arabim, Achutza, Arabs out, that's what they want.
Arabs are the fellow human beings of Jews. Are they somehow not as good?
Not true at all. It's precisely because I respect the Arab and know that the Arab sincerely believes that we Jews are thieves, all of us. He sincerely believes that we are thieves. We came to the country in 1880. There was a majority of Arabs.
And you sincerely believe that they are thieves. They drain our money. They steal our land.
Exactly
they kill our children.
And therefore it's an immutable problem. It's an immutable problem. And therefore I want them out in any one of their 22 countries. May God bless them all. And just leaving my one country.
But you don't expect them to go.
Of course not. I expect to throw them out.
Like Ezer Weitzman, by far the majority of Israelis are against Kahane. Recently, some young Jewish members of the Labour Party tried to stop him from speaking at a rally in Tel Aviv. Kahane, true to form, went out of his way to provoke a confrontation.
When I take power and I ban these parties, I'll be able to show why I'm doing it. They're playing into my hands. These are people who won't give me speak. They have written their own death warrant as political parties. They will not be allowed to speak.
You proposed a law for the Knesset to pass against Arabs that's really astonishingly identical to the Nuremberg laws of the Nazis under Adolf Hitler.
Mr. Wallace, one of the problems of Jews is that they wouldn't know a Jewish concept if they tripped over one. I merely quoted from the Talmud. Most Jews think that Judaism is Thomas Jefferson. It's not.
You know, of course, that there are distinguished rabbis who don't agree that what you are preaching here is Judaism. What they say that you're preaching is racism and bigotry.
I challenge any of them to a debate. Why are they afraid to debate me?
They don't want to dignify you.
No, that's a cop-out.
They are ashamed of you.
I simply had the courage, if you will, to simply take Judaism from the Talmud and say this is what should be in Israel.
People speculate that Meir Kahane could wind up dead. You know that?
I know that.
And you have suggested that it would not be at the hands of an Arab, but at the hands of a Jew.
Yes.
Why would they want to murder Meir Kahane now?
Because they are frustrated. They know of no other way to stop him. Their nightmare is that will Kahane become the prime minister.
You don't really believe you're going to be prime minister, Rabbi Kahane?
I hope that I'll be the prime minister to save the Jews from the Arabs and from themselves.
Maybe we'll look at something quickly. One of the problems we had as being yeshiva guys is we're saying, Rabbi Kahane, it's all halacha, and this is halacha, right? But where are the rabbis? Like even Mike Wallace asked me, he's just looking. But even really, it was a legitimate question. Where are the Gedolim, right? And they were alone on this issue. And it was so bad that when, let's look at the next story.
That's Golding.
Maybe that one. Okay.
Which one?
University of Golding.
Which one?
Yeah. The question. So he goes to Yeshiva University, and they asked him that question.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they asked him that. Let's just show up. They asked him that question. Yeshiva, he's a bachur, and why are the gedolim? Why you don't have the support?
So, any other background or to play it?
That's okay. That's all you can read. Hear it.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, so in regard to the goals, you have to go and follow. If you have to go and follow, what about the concept of very often concept?
I have a question.
There's no such concept.
What was the question?
What about going by the majority of the gedolim, the Sanhedrin?
For that in our times. When there was a Sanhedrin, that is what it says. Within the framework there was the Sanhedrin, you have to follow the rule. That's for sure. Today, there is no Sanhedrin. So nobody follows gedolim. You follow your brother. You follow your brother. The proof is, if all the gedolim in the world would say yes, and let's say the Bozer would say no, who would the Bozer people follow? 5 guesses. Who would it be? And they'd be right, because nowadays there is no authority. Each Gadol is an authority for his Talmidim. And furthermore, you don't have to stick with that Gadol. In other words, many times throughout recent history, people switch the yeshiva, they switch this, they switch. In short, if you are learning at a certain time with a certain Gadol, you are obligated to follow that Gadol. But you're not married to? And many times. Rabbi Akiva Eiger's grandson became a chassid, and his father sat shivah. In those days, it wasn't it was a tremendous thing. So how could he become a chassid? Because you have to have every Jew in his entire life, in every moment of his life, has to have his God. Everyone has to have a God. But no one has Gedolim as a God. It's a God. And if your brother says something, if you hold that this is it, then you have to follow it until you switch. If you're learning in this yeshiva, you have a gadol. You're asking me? First of all, it's none of your business. That's the first thing. Nevertheless, I will tell you. First of all, it's none of your business, really. Nevertheless, I will tell you. The spotted chief rabbi, the Mochel is the one that I go to when I have a question. When I don't have a question, I don't go to him. I received smicha, and I didn't get smicha and his phone number. I know how to learn. And when I have a kasha, a shayla, I go to him. Just as you don't ask a shayla on every chicken that you eat. You have a shayla, you ask on the chicken. If you don't know something, you ask. And that is how it is. When I have shaylas, I go to him. And he is my brother. Okay? Now it's your business to run.
It's none of your business. What is your business? So that was kind of interesting. There's all the questions like that at Hebrew University. In the end, his own rabbis didn't support him. One of the stories is a true story. He says it here too. They were banning Rabbi Kahane in the end. Well, let's talk about the ban for a second.
Sure.
People have to live in those times to realize how close he was getting. If you look at 88, the elections he was banned. Now, 87, the Intifada broke out. There was a groundswell of Kahane. Now, it wasn't just Sephardi now. Now the Ashkenazi Jews are going for him. Because his views were known. The left was putting out his views. They didn't really know the depth of his views. That he's crazy. He wants to fight all the Arabs. Well, that was finding favor in a lot of Jews' eyes. To get rid of the Arabs. And a lot of people who vote, even the Labour Party, they don't love Arabs. They just want a solution to the problem. They want to separate. So they separate the bad way. So the Rabbi Kahane was offering, throw out the Arabs. In any case, you got to know how this groundswell was coming. I mean, I like to show a few. Look at this pole right there.
Which one? The kind of pole?
The pole. They show it in a pole. I don't know how you can see it, but they had everywhere, and he was the third largest part. I don't know if you can see it great. They put a copy in the newspaper, and they put a ballot box, and everywhere Kahane was the third or fourth party, third, everywhere, third party. We're talking about a breakthrough. We're talking about 20 seats, and it made sense. I'm taking 10 to 20 seats for sure. All right. He got in his seat in 84, got one seat. But now with all that was happening, now think about it. The Knesset banned him, and then we had a week before the Bagatz, the Supreme Court banned, and I was thinking, wow, now he's getting publicity even, because they have to cover it. It's a big story. You're banning a Democratic Party in Israel, and then what kind of he was getting coverage a little bit, and I said, wow, we're talking Prime Minister maybe. Anyway, we know what happened. They banned him too, the Bagatz. So before the ban, there's also newspaper articles all over the place how they're catching fire, and the Likud is trying to ban him. I have all this stuff. And I show this to Israelis a lot. They don't know what happened. The kids. They don't know what happened. And this is without the rabbi being on that talk show on 60 Minutes, or that's not a good example, but being on those shows where he can express himself in an intellectual manner. This is just from rallies, right? They didn't even know what he was about. So imagine if they got to know what he was really about, the Israelis. But it never happened. And one of the things that happened that they banned him on racism, and they had to have a reason for it. It's kind of like with Trump. The minute he got in, how are we going to impeach him? By the way, the answer that Rabbi Kahane gave to Braden, somehow he's the president. You know, if you pick up the Washington Post in New York, it's the same thing with Trump today. Or if you pick up all the media, you think everybody hates Trump, but somehow he's the president. So then exactly was that with Reagan. You know, nothing changes. You know. Anyways, and he shut them up with that one. But anyway, we're trying to get the rabbi for the Bagatz. We're hoping, you know, maybe they won't ban him in the Bagatz. It's Mishamayim. Hashem is sending the, you know, through Rabbi Kahane, we're going to bring the Gula maybe. You know, he's going to get 20 seats and he's it, right? So what are they banning him on? They had a reason. They wanted to ban him at the beginning that he said the Psalms. That's what they were talking about, going by a higher law. Remember that question? He said Psalms, that Hashem's law goes before Knesset, you know, something in Psalms. Now they're trying to get him all the way through on racism. They had to get the racist bill through. What is it? That he wants to marry, he has a thing about Jews and non-Jews not marrying each other. So it's a law against intermarriage. That's racist. So we had Ben-Ari and Baruch Kahane, they went to rabbis. You don't have to write that Kahane is right. Just sign the letter that it's not racist to intermarriage. It's something really powerful. But they knew it was for Rabbi Kahane's defense in the Bagatz. Everybody said, if I'm the second person, I won't be the... Give me 7 signatures and I'll sign. Give me 5. Nobody wanted to sign first. Big rabbis. Anyway, so at the end we know what happened. They banned him. They banned the party. And then on the radio, right after the banning, they interviewed the whole world. It was a big story in Israel. You're banning a party in Israel and it's going to get a lot of seats. So he is on the radio. The head rabbi of Israel says, Rabbi Kahane Talmid Chacham Muvhak. He's a great Torah scholar. And everything he says is according to halacha. So Rabbi Kahane is sitting in the car. He hears it and he says, I needed a signature, not a eulogy. Anyway, so that was it. And after that, there wasn't much to do, you know, the Knesset. And to me, that kind of made the Knesset, for me, personally, kind of irrelevant, because I saw how far he got. Nobody's going to get that far. And then they shot him down like that. Now we're going to start again. And you can't even say the things the rabbi said, you know, today. And why was he popular? Not because he was Rabbi Kahane, not because of his charisma. He had a message, man. He had a psarah, what they said. He had a message that was giving hope to the Jewish man. He went from rally to city to, not just before the elections. Every single day he was giving rallies with that message. You know, Arabs out, this one, and all the others. So they like the message. It's not just him. And if you don't have that message, you really aren't going to separate yourself with a clear, distinct message. So it will just end with
the band.
Which one?
You want the band, or you want something else?
This is the articles. By the way, I have rallies for the Israelis. You know, the rallies are maybe this one. This is pretty. This is like this show. All right, this one.
Sonia.
This is talking about great answers to questions. This was a pretty good one. This is when he's on the Sonia Friedman show. Okay, this is she's really no match here for him, but he takes phone calls in the middle of the show.
Rabbi Meir Kahane is our guest today. He's a controversial member of the Israeli cabinet, and we're going to go right to our phones and say hello to Randy in Los Angeles. Hello, Randy.
Morning, Dr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kahane, I have a question for you. Before Israel became a state, the British were doing the same thing. They were stoning, the Jews were throwing stones at the British, protesting, and the British did the same thing. They whipped them, they had illegal trials, they arrested them. How do you make that comparison today to what the Jews are doing to the Arabs? Seems like we don't seem to learn from our lessons.
Yeah, well, listen, you know, cops have guns and robbers have guns. That doesn't make cops robbers. During World War II, the Germans bombing and the British bombed Germany, it was not the same. The British were occupiers of the land of the Jewish people. The Jews are not occupiers of the land of the Jewish people. It is not an equation.
We'll go on now to Nadim from Yonkers. Nadim?
Rabbi, I'd like to ask you a question. How could a religious man of your stature continue to oppress Palestinians in the same way the Nazis oppressed the Jewish people during World War II?
You know, I just love that kind of question. You people tried to kill us in the 1920s. In one day in 1929, you murdered 67 Jews in Hebron. What was bothering you then? The Jewish state? It didn't exist. The Israeli army? It didn't exist. Kahane? He wasn't born. You murdered 510 Jewish men, women, and children between 1936 and 38. What was bothering you then? The occupied territories of 67. You started 3 wars with us, and you lost. And now you cry. If you hadn't started the wars with us, you would have had a Palestine a long, long time ago. would have been living together side by side. You didn't want that. You wanted everything. You started, you lost, you lose.
We'll go on now to Mark in Malibu. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Rabbi. I just want to congratulate you for what seems to me is a pretty darn common sense ability to recognize the patterns and the trends that just simply refuse to go away. And your point of view, it seems pretty simple and direct and ruthless, and it should be. And I guess I just don't understand why world opinion has to chastise this kind of common sense while it tends to forget and forgive.
Because of the word you used, Mark. Mark used the word ruthless. And I think he picked up, even in the compliment to you, a certain aspect of this that is very difficult for Americans to understand.
Thank God we're ruthless. To save our own lives. What would you do to save your own child? What would you not do to save your own child? Would you be ruthless? You had better be ruthless, or you'd be a pretty lousy mother. But to save my own people, I'll do anything.
Lenny.
Thank you, Lenny.
Any questions?
Because you were talking, just you hadn't wanted to jump in. But
Yeah,
you were saying like the Rav got like up to almost like 20 seats. He was doing like it's from what I understand, like 2 and 3 rallies a day.
He did it every day.
Going to like every
for 4 years he did it. Every little. He didn't go to the kikkar. He went to little
They
neighborhoods.
think they can go on like they can do a tweet. Well, Trump's tweeting, but you know, even in this country, there need to be a tweet or Facebook. But he went to like there was no social media.
Right. So that's how you got to the people. Exactly. That's right. He worked hard. You know, those are fun days. We built a stage, and you know, get the microphones out. And sometimes there were a few people, some there were a lot of people. It didn't matter. You got the message out, and it was always fun to watch because for those people hearing it for the first time, it's like you could go to a concert. I don't know, Springsteen, and people go many times because it's an experience. You know, every time that's how I felt at those rallies. You know, every time he's speaking to different people. But after a terror attack, my God, he had thousands, sometimes hundreds, thousands. It was always when there was something happening, like after an attack. A lot of people came, but he worked hard to get out there, and that's what he was like. When he talked about the grassroots, that you know, it's something that he had his hands on the pulse of what was going on.
I live out town and would like just to help me. What I want to say first of all is for the people who haven't been lucky enough to live in the times when we were around Rav Kahane, and that's 40 years ago, the feeling of warm reawakening of the heart. By just seeing these, thank God we had means then we go. That was his first videographer. And one more thing, personal. Anybody's driving for 43?
Yes. That's